Whether you're a new Jeep owner or just a bit nervous about hitting the trails, this is the video for you. We're going to cover all the basics from essential equipment to driving techniques to give you the confidence you need for your first time out on the trail. I'm Neil with SFJ4x4.com, Simpson Family Jeeps, one of the nation's leading Jeep-specific off-road shops. And I need you to like and subscribe and ring that bell to get notifications of awesome Jeep and off-road content. Do you know your rig? Do you have a plan? Have you packed it accordingly? And are you prepared for this epic off-road adventure you're about to go on? I understand that you might be new and a little nervous, and that is perfectly okay. So in order to do this video for you, one of the things that we considered in the process is what events are available to us to attend in the next few weeks. And realistically, we found an off-road event at a particular property that I'm kind of passionate about. And there is a group of dedicated off-road enthusiasts who are just excited to ensure that you have an awesome time. Now, this particular event is not huge, it's not national, there's not gonna be tons of hubbub, and so therefore it's kind of a perfect place to test the waters. What better way to test the waters? Not taking some big behemoth overbuilt Jeep of ours, not taking Chuck Norris or Johnny 5 or the LSXJ, but my cheap Jeep. My newest to my fleet, my beach cruiser, if you will. We're gonna take it out there because quite frankly, it might be similar to what you have at home yourself as a new Jeeper. This particular Jeep is a 2008 Jeep JK Rubicon. Now, don't get all excited about the fact that it's a Rubicon. Nothing negates the fact that it is a arguably pathetic 3.8 engine. It is a power-robbing automatic transmission. And look at those really sick all-terrain tires I've got. This thing does not scream off-road powerhouse. But ultimately, I think the combination of taking a relatively stock Jeep to the Oil Valley Jeep's 10-mile for 2-mile Jeep run is a great introductory experience to help you at home understand how we take a Jeep like this and go wheeling for the first time. You're gonna want to check over things basically from front to back. You're gonna go ahead, get in there, pop the hood. Time to familiarize yourself with the under hood characteristics of your Jeep. Get a lay of the land, if you will. Check your fluids, make sure that you have done an oil change recently, run down the body, make sure that everything is tight, right, and secure in the process. I like to be a minimalist when I wheel. I don't want lots of stuff in my cup holders or on my dash. I know we all love our ducks, but realistically, maybe leave them at home unless they're appropriately secured to the dash or wherever on your Jeep. Make sure that all that loose junk in the back is essential to your trip. Don't take stuff just because. Make sure that what is going with you is going to be your basic required necessities. So what are those basic required necessities? You're gonna want some form of recovery gear. You're definitely gonna want a spare tire. You're gonna want a minor first aid kit and possibly some basic tooling. As you check over the Jeep, you're gonna wanna make sure that that basic tooling that would have been supplied with the vehicle is present. That means if it's a stock Jeep, that you have the stock jack on hand in case you need to check a flat. While you are doing all that, check your tires. Make sure that that they're not already exposed to being compromised on the trail, that their tread is decent, that the air pressure is appropriate, and that the lug nuts are torqued to spec. And we'll leave those specs down below for you, so if depending on what vehicle you're driving, you know what your lug nut torque should be. As you do that, you move from the engine compartment down to the base of the vehicle. We're checking, making sure there's nothing loose or falling off the Jeep, checking our air pressure as we go. Take a moment to lay on a cardboard creeper or just get under the Jeep and get intimate. Have a look-see at what's going on to ensure that we've set ourselves and all of the other members of the community that are on the trail with us up for success for a rockin' cool off-road day. So we've arrived on site and we filled out all the necessary waivers or permissions. Understand that a lot of off-road parks now do this digitally or electronically if you do it ahead of time. Myself, I missed online registration for this particular event, and so realistically, I had to do it here in paper. With that said, I'm gonna wanna make sure that the weather is going to be advantageous for our off-road experience. Obviously, today is going to be gorgeous, and so I'm excited about that. This is the time before you hit the trail that is important for you to do a couple of different things. You're going to want to disconnect your front sway bar. Now, a lot of people say, why just the front? That's really the big part of the roll center and ensuring that your Jeep has good stability off-road. You're going to really let that axle stretch its legs in the process. So if you have a Rubicon, you're going to go ahead and just kind of hit that button. For the rest of us peasants who have a physical disconnect, we're going to get under there with a hammer or a pry bar. We're going to get those disconnects off in some capacity, get them tied up out of the way, make sure they're secured for off-roading, and that will be set for us at that point. Almost every off-road facility that I have ever gone to is going to encourage you to engage in 4 low. The reason you engage in 4 low is not because of the technical difficulty of the trail, but the ease and efficiency that the engine and driveline work at to kind of intimately make you the driver in tune with the vehicle. You just get more mechanical advantage in low range than your standard 4 high. So listen to those trail guides, put it in 4 low. You're going to use a little less wheel spin, especially if you let out some air in your tires. This is that time that you want to do that. Additionally, know your trails and know your personal strengths and weaknesses. If you are attending an event with other Jeepers, the likelihood is somebody there has ran that trail and can weigh in on the technical difficulties of it. Know your blues and your greens, your blacks, your reds, whatever your trail markers are for the particular facility that you're wheeling, ask around. And again, if you're nervous, that's okay. It's not saying that, you know, there's anything wrong with kind of taking it easy at first. With that said, this particular event is geared towards introducing and welcoming new Jeepers to the community. So I'm looking forward to stretching the legs of my beach cruiser, and I think it's going to be a great experience here on site. So come along, let's get in line and get ready to hit the trails. What is your experience with this specific property?
This specific property, this is the 4th year we've done this event. It's a nice event for the beginner wheeler to come out. I call them like a mild green trail. Anybody that has, you know, decent tires, 4-wheel drive, we have very little problem, especially on a day like today where it's nice and dry.
Sure,
yeah.
Sure. If you had a piece of advice for a first time, somebody who was wheeling, who just got into a Jeep, no modifications,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And you're coming to an event, obviously this is an event that's kind of perfectly slated for that.
Yes.
What kind of recommendations would you make for?
What I would do, have them come out, run the scenic trail. The scenic trail is really nice, it's very easy. Pull one of the volunteers aside and say, hey, you know, I'd like to try this. And then we can slate them with somebody, you know, kind of pair them, maybe like we're not real busy. We could pair them down and maybe go out and give a little bit of one-on-one attention to them, because everybody that volunteers for this event is very helpful. Very helpful. Yeah. It's a good place for first-timers to come out. You know, it's funny because people say, hey, I'm nervous, and I'm like, you're fine, we'll get you through it.
Right, and it's just other Jeepers.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's the cool thing about it.
Exactly.
All right.
Thank you, Neil.
Yeah,
Appreciate
for sure, Ken. The moment you've been waiting for as a new Jeep owner. The butterflies are welled up in your stomach and you're ready to get off-road, and you're kind of worried that, you know, am I going to be competent and capable enough to do this? You have great trail guides, typically speaking, if you're going to a good curated event. The thing about off-roading is there is no race for who finishes first. It is all about having fun and picking your lines and riding amongst the beautiful scenery that an off-road experience offers you. Make sure you're sitting up high in your seat so you can look out over the hood of your vehicle. You want to make sure that your hands and feet are in all the time. Constantly, we see people sticking their hands, their arms, their legs, riding on the pegs out of the vehicle. I get it. Don't do it in the off-road, because quite frankly, if it's a space that you're unfamiliar with, you don't know whether or not a limb, a tree, a stick, some type of descent and ascent is going to jostle you around and potentially cause harm. At this point in time, it's valuable to take a look at the placement of your wheels and tires, because realistically, the goal is not to intentionally get yourself stuck. I recognize there are folks out there who are going to do that, but for the most part, your goal should be to comfortably and confidently navigate this beautiful scenery and arguably leave the trail a slightly better place than you found it. Don't veer off and don't get all crazy, and definitely don't drive with the skinny pedal unless you have to. So there's a couple things while you're actually driving that you may want to be conscientious of. Make sure you understand where your hand placement is. I like to drive with the heels of my hand and basically a light grip with my fingers over top of it. You don't want to have your fingers shoved through the wheel in case you do hit that sudden stop and the wheel kind of quickly spins out of your hand. You really don't want to have a finger randomly stuck in the wheel and spin with your bump steer or with the way that the tie rod or drag link is drugged because of hitting that obstacle. Additionally, if you're an automatic, you may want to monitor your transmission temperatures. You also, if you're an automatic with manual selection, you might want to choose your gear. If you're a manual, you are going to want to pick first, second, and maybe max third gear to drive in. Try not to go excessive speeds in low range. Most curated rides and off-road experiences will ask you to be in low range. That's simply because your Jeep is working more efficiently for the mechanical advantage that's pushing through your axles. So at this point in time, my beach cruiser is doing a wonderful job for us off-road. I'm trying to maintain where my body is, where my line of sight. I don't have obscured vision kind of anywhere in the vehicle. You're excited, but relaxed. And that's an interesting feeling that we get, but I think that's what really drives a lot of off-road enthusiasts, is this idea that I'm a little bit on edge, but at the same time, it's such a cool experience. It's almost euphoric. So when you're trail riding with a group, which you should always have a partner off-road, only the most advanced off-roaders should attempt to go out by themselves. And believe me, I've done it. There's an epic story with my sister and I wheeling on my 25th birthday. You know what? Go with the group. When you are with a group and you're riding in the woods, make sure your lights are on. You're going to want to make sure that there's 1 or 2 vehicle lengths of distance between the Jeep in front of you and ideally behind you. You're going to maintain like a constant and steady speed. And as obstacles approach, feel free to slow down and turn your radio up. Encourage people to kind of slow down and say, hey, you know what? I need a breather. I want to try this obstacle, but I need to watch some other people do the line first. Having a radio is pivotal in a successful off-road experience, especially with a group, because people can radio ahead if there's obstacles, the trail is maybe changed, if there's a closure that you were unaware of and now you need to pivot the whole group. It's way better that the third or fourth Jeep be able to break off from the group and take a safe route than everybody get traffic jammed at a impassable obstacle. Now, epic stories is what we all talk and draw upon. So nobody tells stories about when things all went right, but realistically, if you can avoid damage and further problems, then you should. A short wheelbase is inherently going to be better in kind of a wooded, tight, technical trail system. Arguably, a longer wheelbase, think your 4-doors and your Gladiators, is simply going to excel in hill climbs, ascents and descents. So your climbs and then you're going downhill. So think about it when you are driving a school bus or a minivan. So Gladiators are the school buses, 4-door JKs are the minivans. If you're driving one of those rigs off-road and you are following a 2-door of some variety like we are, understand that they may be able to make a turn more easily or more confidence inspired than you are, simply because of turn radius and wheelbase. And that's something to keep in mind. The Jeep in front of you might just handle an obstacle better or more efficiently simply because of what the Jeep is than your Jeep. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't take the time, say, hey, I gotta back up, I gotta move around. And if you are a newbie getting excited about doing this, that's perfectly okay. We all started somewhere. Typically speaking, if they're running a newbie run, even if it's on a more advanced trail system like the one that we're currently on, most people are okay to allow you to kind of learn and to kind of assess the situation at your pace. We all know that strapping stuff to the top of your Jeep looks super cool. And honestly, we all just want to look tactical. So max tracks, rotopacks, rooftop tents, the works. I dig it. But there are certain obstacles out there where your vehicle may lean ever so slightly, or an obstacle where your one side may elevate and then all of a sudden drop down. There's a potentiality for your Jeep to slip or drift. Oftentimes the roof line may come dangerously close to a tree or an obstacle or a rock, depending on where you're wheeling. So be conscientious of, if something extends beyond the roof line of your vehicle, that you are compensating for that as you pick obstacles. So even if the obstacle is on your passenger side, if you've got rooftop tent sticking another 7, 9, 10, 11 inches above your vehicle, plus max tracks or rotopacks, there's a good chance that those expensive accessories could become collateral damage on the opposite side of the obstacle that you're trying to avoid. Now, this can be boiled down to its kind of simplistic explanation. Be a decent human being. I know, some of you, that might be a little too hard. But realistically, the vast majority of you have got this covered. So what does that specifically mean? We're going to talk about respect the environment, respecting the other users on the trail, and when it does come to an uncomfortable or less than ideal situation like a recovery, how do you act and behave? So respecting the environment is pretty simple. And realistically, that's stay on the designated trail. Follow your trail guide, stay within the line, and try not to create unnecessary damage to the surrounding area. Again, our objective is to leave no trace other than the trail system we're on. For years, our sport, our hobby of off-roading has been under attack from all walks of life. And realistically, it has a lot to do with the lowest common denominator of off-roaders who are actually out there destroying precious lands. Stay out of swampy areas. Don't drive with the skinny pedal and rut up the trail for other people. If you are like me, who's an avid off-roader on beachfront or coastal properties, think OBX and Hatteras Island. Stay off the dunes. If it's posted no 4x4, that means you. Don't take your 4x4 there. I understand. You have a really capable, super sick rig and you want to show off. Don't. Have a little couth and ensure that we get to all have a good time and enjoy these trails. Realistically, trails and public lands are being closed to off-road enthusiasts every day. And it's our job to ensure that what we're doing when we're off-road does not give them reason to do that. We want to be the reason why we keep it open. Turn off your 50,000 LED lights so that you're not blinding the person in front of you. Turn down your music. I understand some people have wheeling music. That's cool, but realistically, you can always just turn your music off. Listen to your Jeep, listen to your off-road rig, listen to the radio as other people chatter. That's all part of the experience. Recoveries are part of off-roading. If you need to be recovered, or if someone else needs to be recovered, that's perfectly normal. And honestly, we all kind of expect it, and we kind of enjoy when we get to help out and help each other through kind of a tough situation. Again, nobody tells stories of when everything went right. We tell stories of when we've overcome adversity and positively come out on top. Don't get upset. Don't cuss and fuss and stomp and throw a big old hissy fit. Trail damage happens, getting stuck happens, and that's going to be perfectly okay. Now, because you should be trail riding with a group of people, you don't always have to have all the equipment like we talked about. Realistically, somebody else in your group might have a better recovery rope. Somebody else might have a more appropriate snatch block. There's a number of resources that you can draw upon to ensure that everyone gets out safely. Don't leave anybody behind. Try not to leave a broken down rig in the woods. First of all, that's not where the rig came from in the beginning of the day. Don't leave it there overnight. Do what you can to get the off-road vehicle out of the woods and certainly off the trail. Because if it's broken down or stuck and you're blocking the path for everybody else, there might be more people coming later in the day. There might be other people trying to pass through that point. And realistically, just because you're stuck and you feel like you don't have a way out doesn't mean that we should impede them as well. So that recovery gear that we talked about, know how to use it. It's definitely something that is valuable to familiarize yourself with ahead of time. So if you're going to be using a kinetic rope, if you're going to be using a snatch block, a synthetic winch line or steel winch line, it's really important that you are conscientious of what equipment you have, what equipment is within your group, so it's at your disposal for a recovery, and realistically that you are comfortable and confident. Because again, when everything goes right, we can be cool and calm and collected. It's when the mosquitoes are bugging you and you're stuck in the mud or you're stuck on a rock or a part has broken and now you need to adapt and overcome. So this is a valuable part of being a team player, being a kind person on the trail, being environmentally friendly, and of course, knowing how to use your equipment that we've already so carefully packed in our rig. Communicating with others is going to be critical to ensuring that you and other people on the trail have a good time. You're definitely going to want to understand trail signals, spotter signals, and have some form of radio or communication. If you can have that pre-planned as part of the group that's going out and understanding what comm system you'll be using, that's going to be really valuable. Especially if you do get in that unfortunate situation where a recovery has to happen. Maintaining a safe distance from the recovery and ensuring that you speak clearly, articulate exactly what your intentions are during that recovery is going to ensure that you have the best chances for success and a safe and positive outcome. Now, when it comes to technical maneuvers off-road, you might be really capable, you might be really green to the situation. Either way, you always want to be on the defense. You want to defer to challenging obstacles. What I mean by that is if there is a kind of a technical maneuver or a hard hairpin turn, an uphill climb or a downhill descent, take your time. Defer to traffic that is immediately coming through. If there is a vehicle that is maneuvering a hard obstacle, get out of their way. Make sure that oncoming traffic, that you are aware of it. If it is one-way or two-way trails, try and know that ahead of time. Yield to uphill traffic. That means if you're going to go downhill, the people who are going uphill have the right of way. Pack it in, pack it out. Being a good steward of the trail ensures that we all have a good time and that we can continue to access 4x4 trails. If you have trash, which we face it, we all make some form of trash, whether it's from those trail snacks or some paperwork that was in your vehicle, whatever it is. There's a whole bunch of different cool products that you can keep the trash on the outside of your rig if you'd like. You can have a trash bag or some type of sealed waterproof trash bag inside the Jeep. Whatever you do, if you've got bottles and papers and all that kind of stuff, if you bring it into the woods or onto the trail, make sure that it goes home with you. The time-honored debate is who's got the best trails, West Coast versus East Coast. And if you really sit down and you talk about it, maybe we'll talk about it sometime here on Life in Low Range, but realistically, there's a big difference. And what happened historically, thousands and thousands of years ago, will ultimately make a huge varying difference in your experience. So if you're west, we've got far more traction. And so knowing if you're new and you're green to Jeeping, knowing your territory that you're going and the type of terrain that you will be encountering will benefit you. So in the west, we have this high traction, grippy, but typically larger rock formations that you're going to be kind of traversing and spanning. In the east, or east of the Mississippi, the argument is we have tight, technical, wooded trails. So if you are a really big, oversized Gladiator, that school bus I was talking about before, realistically, woods trails you might actually find them more challenging. Know your terrain before you go, and that's going to really ensure that your vehicle and that you as a driver are set up for success. Now, I have the distinct advantage where I could put the Jeep on one of the lifts and really have this calm, confident, comfortable experience of, inspecting my cheap Jeep, what I've affectionately termed Ken's Jeep now, from Barbie and Ken, post the trip. And a big thanks to OVJ for ensuring that something as cool as Ken's beach cruiser could in fact go wheeling for the day. And so I could put it on the lift, but you at home watching likely are not going to be able to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what are those post-trip maintenance tips and tricks that you need to know to look for after you've gone wheeling. Depending on how elaborate your post-trip inspection is going to be, is going to determine the severity of how you set your vehicle up for maintenance. Meaning, some of our customers and individuals that I've known in the community will actually go in and jack up the Jeep in its entirety, put it on 4 jack stands, and start to drop skids or drop sliders, things like that. But the vast majority of you are not going to do that. What I am going to recommend is that we do a brief but thorough overview of potential damage or wear on the vehicle in kind of a 360-degree fashion. We're going to kind of think back on our wheeling experience. Did it make any noises? Did it behave kind of odd or quirky? You might want to rush over to the internet or to your local 4x4 professional and ask them a question or two as to what could have caused that. It'll help you focus your inspection after your wheeling trip. Additionally, we're going to go ahead and we're going to check our fluids, and we're going to give the vehicle a good thorough scrub down post wheeling experience. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the hood. We're going to just verify that everything is where we left it. It's so valuable. I know many of you in your newer vehicles don't have to worry about this as much, but our old school rigs, that battery better be exactly where you left it last. It's a mouthful, but our old school Jeeps, and certainly if you check out one of my older videos, Wheeling Chuck Norris Off-Road, the battery hold down can shimmy, shuck, break, whatever. Newer Jeeps don't have to worry about it as much, but we want to make sure that as we continue to daily drive the vehicle, that all of our electrical connections, our battery is in place, nothing is moved around as much. We're going to go ahead and we're going to basically reverse inspect all of those things we already talked about in our pre-trip inspection. You're going to look over your serpentine system. We're going to take a moment to check our fluids as far as our engine oil, our transmission fluid. We're just going to verify where our levels are and see if they're any different from where we left them last. A lot of that low and slow crawling in the woods or kind of that bouncing off-road can wreak havoc on your cooling system. So we're going to want to double check that coolant and make sure it's topped off right where we left it before we went on our trip. Check that brake fluid, make sure that it's reasonably where it's supposed to be, and just do a good, again, brief but thorough inspection of the engine bay, ensuring that it is basically how it was before you went. Obviously, if you see anything out of kilter, maybe you bounced around a little bit, you loosened something up, definitely take note, run to the internet, run to your local pro 4x4 shop, ask them those questions. If you can't fix it, take it to them, take it to us, and we kind of go from there. But in this moment, make sure it's all good. If there is a ton of mud on there, if there is a ton of red rock dust, if you have picked up a small wildlife creature has crawled up in there while you're camping, now is the time. You got to make sure you get that removed. You definitely don't want that sandy, silty particulate, that red rock dust, the mud to cake up on the engine, bringing up those engine temps or under hood temps. We don't want it in our radiator. All of the fins, we want to make sure we've got ample airflow in and out of the engine bay. Bearings, pulleys, any of that rotating assembly could be compromised in the process when it's packed up on here. So under hood temps and bearing failure are some of the biggest reasons we want to go ahead and clean thoroughly if it is necessary. Now, you might say, hey, you know what, it's just dusty under there. Still clean it. I gotta be honest with you, a clean engine bay is a safe engine bay, is a long-term engine bay. So make sure that you're doing your best to make sure things are where they were, and to set yourself up for success the next time you're ready to go out wheeling. So this is your opportunity to reflect on what worked well and maybe what didn't. So you took your Jeep out and hopefully you had an awesome time. And after that post-trip maintenance inspection that you've done and the cleaning and looking over things, hopefully your Jeep is going to be rock solid for your 9 to 5, Monday to Friday commute. And it'll be that Swiss Army knife we want it to be. But with that said, now that you've got a taste of that off-road experience, you really have to ask yourself, what upgrades come next? Do you need something like this monster behind me? Maybe you will, maybe you won't. That's really not for us to kind of weigh in on. Ultimately, that'll be a very personal decision based on what worked and what didn't in your experience. Did you get hung up on a fairly low obstacle that other Jeeps with bigger tires and maybe more lift kind of easily traversed? Did you get stuck in the mud because you're running, a non-aggressive all-terrain or maybe even a stock highway terrain tire? Did you go night wheeling at an event and simply couldn't see the trail because your lights weren't bright enough? This is that opportunity to say what comes next for you as an off-roader. Now, ultimately, it is important that you kind of have a keen ear as you continue to use your Jeep for the next 3, 5, 7, 9 days, because realistically, something could have gotten slightly compromised in your wheeling experience, and just because you didn't catch it on this final inspection doesn't mean that it won't become a problem. So definitely start to set aside some budget for those desirable upgrades, but also keep in mind that there may be 1 or 2 repairs that comes with this hobby we love so much. Hopefully you found this video engaging and insightful. We look forward to seeing you out on the trail, whether it's something gnarly like Johnny 5 or something as basic and just fun as my cheap Jeep, Ken the Beach Cruiser. We hope that you have a great time off-road. Make sure that you comment down below if you have gone wheeling, if you haven't gone wheeling, if you're looking forward to it. What's your worst case experience? What's your best case experience that you've had? I mean, realistically, we read and respond to almost 100% of comments that come in on these videos. We want to hear from you and engage you in this process. If there's anything that you're looking for more through this process, we'd like to know, and we can help you get out on the trail. Additionally, if you have any other tips or tricks for our viewers, we want you to post that below too, so that we can all learn together as the Jeep community we are.